my name is Elizabeth and welcome to my DIY channel. I'm going to show you how to use a hole saw, and I'm going to demonstrate that by making a vertical garden. Now, a hole saw is actually a power drill bit attachment. It's not its own power tool, and it is really important for you to use an actual power drill with a cord, because a cordless drill just won't be powerful enough to drive this through the wood. So it is an attachment. It is one attachment, but it does actually come in two pieces. First of all, you have your hole saw, which is this white part here, and I have a 3-inch hole saw, and then you have a mandrel, and this is basically like a heavy-duty power drill bit that attaches to your hole saw. So it screws on, and then latches on, like that. And I'll do that up close so you can see what I'm talking about. So first of all, you have your hole saw here. There's the interior. And it's going to screw in here, and then these two little prongs on your mandrel are going to fit in two of these 4 holes here. Screw it on. And that's what it looks like. And then this drill bit, you do actually want it to extend further than the hole saw. That is because it enters the wood first, stabilizes the saw, and guides the saw straight down into the wood. So once you get it pieced together, attach it to your power drill, and you're almost ready to go. Perfect. Before I drill into my wood, I make sure that it is stabilized, because this hole saw, it just like any saw, it does have a little bit of resistance. And if what you're drilling into isn't perfectly stable, it can kind of take it and spin it and kind of launch it across the room. So you don't want that to happen. You also don't want to hold down whatever you're drilling into with your hand and then have this right next to it. Once again, if the saw does get a little out of control, if it bucks or something like that, it could cut into your hand. So that's pretty dangerous. So what I do is I just make sure that whatever I'm cutting into, and in this instance is these little squares here, I make sure that they're stable on the surface that I'm using. And in this case, I'm using a scrap piece of board. And I don't know if you can see both of the clamps. I have it clamped down on either side of the table. And I'm using scrap board because once I drill, I'm going to drill all the way through these pieces, and I don't want to drill into my table afterwards. So I put a scrap piece of board underneath of it. And then I have actually screwed each one of these wood blocks into the scrap board so that they are completely immobile. They're completely stable. Another thing is be very aware of what you're doing. Be very present. That's kind of all across the board with power tools. But this is one where I really have to keep my hands very rigid when I'm using it, because otherwise it can really make this drill buck and move around, and if that happens, then things can kind of get out of control. So just make sure that everything's pretty rigid and that you're applying a pretty strong force. So those are just basic safety precautions when using a hole saw. You always hope that nothing will go wrong, but you do this just in case something does go wrong. Now, another thing that I do is I make a shield because I'm always afraid of that thing kind of spinning out of control and coming back at me. So I use this sled that my mom got me, and I put it right here on a chair, and then I get up here, and then I use it. It may look silly to you. This is just a precaution that I take. I couldn't not tell you about it because I have to videotape myself doing this, and you're going to see this red thing and be like, what is she doing? I would suggest if you have something that you can put between you and what's going on, do it, if it makes you feel safer. This is what I do. So I think that's it for prep. I don't think I've missed anything. I've marked a spot in the center of each one of these pieces of wood. That's where the mandrel's going to go and guide the saw down into the wood. So I've got it lined up. So now you're stuck with the circle of wood in your hole saw, and to get that out, you kind of have to take it all apart again, which is a pain in the butt. So you just have to unscrew the mandrel out, and you can just kind of poke the piece of wood out of it. So that's it. It makes a huge mess, but it also makes a very lovely, perfect little circle in the middle of your piece of wood. So I'm now going to do the same thing for these two other pieces. Once again, get it lined up. Make sure you've got the drill going full speed by the time the hole saw gets down and it starts cutting into the wood. All right, number 2 done. Oh, also, it's going to create kind of like a smoky smell. That's normal because this is creating a ton of friction. So you will kind of have like a fire smell or a wood burning smell. Don't think that there's something wrong with your power tool. It's from the friction between the saw and the wood. Alrighty, so now I have 3 perfectly cut little holes in my boards. Next up, I'm going to drill 4 holes in each corner of each piece of wood to allow the rope to go through it. And since I'm using a 1/4 inch rope, I'm actually going to use a 3/8 inch paddle drill bit that's slightly larger than a 1/4 inch to allow this rope to pass through. This is what the pieces should look like once they're finished. Next up, I'm going to apply wood stain, let that dry, and then we can begin the assembly with the rope. Now I'm moving on to the rope that's going to hold the wooden pieces together. I've cut off 2 strands of 1/4 inch manila rope. Both of these strands are 11 feet long, and I know that sounds really long. I don't think I'm going to use all of it. I'll probably use most of it, but I just want to make sure I have enough. It's better to have too much than not enough because you can't add it back on. You can always cut it off. And I'm going to secure them around this steel ring, and you can get this at a hardware store, a couple bucks. I'm just going to loop the ropes this way, and then loop the ends through. And tighten it, and there it is, secured around the steel ring. So this is what's going to hang, and then these are our 4 strands. Each strand of rope is going to fit through one of those smaller holes that we made in the corner. So this is what the wooden pieces look like, all stained and clear coat finished. If you've never wood stained before, or you'd like to know how, you can check out my video, How to Make a Wine Rack. And also in my video, How to Make a Bookshelf Using No Nails and Screws, I also show you how to use wood stain and mix wood stain to get your own unique customized color. So before I start putting these pieces on, I did put a zip tie up here at the top right underneath the knot so that this knot won't budge. So when I'm tying knots in these individual strands underneath the pieces of wood, I won't be pulling rope through this knot and disturbing it. The second thing I did was on the end of each of the pieces of rope, I did put a little bit of Scotch tape. This is because we're going to be passing these pieces through the tiny holes in each corner of the pieces of wood. And if we don't put tape on it, what'll happen is it'll fray the ends and they'll kind of get enlarged, and then it'll be really difficult to get them through the next piece of wood. So it really is kind of a nice little step you can take, a little precaution you can take to make your life easier for about 5 minutes. So this is going to be your first plant holder right here. And you want to allow enough space between this top part and here for a plant to kind of exist in here. So you don't want to put it like way up here because you got to put a plant in here. You want to give it enough room to spread out. So we're going to maybe put it right there. So we'll tie our first knot. Just a simple knot, that's all you have to do. So now we're going to tie the other 3 knots and tie them, make sure that this stays even and level. So that looks pretty level, and now I'm going to put on the other 2 pieces of wood. Well, I got them all on pretty equidistant apart, and now we'll just cut off these ends. We'll leave maybe a few inches and cut off the ends. We're left with about 1 foot, so actually you could probably, let's see, I cut off an 11-foot strand. You could probably stand to make this with like a 10 or 9-foot strand actually, because we're cutting almost 1 foot off of each one of these pieces. So we'll leave a few inches dangling, because I think it'll look nice and rustic. Now I'm going to use super glue, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the ends of each of the pieces of rope so that it doesn't fray. Super glue is really good for this because it'll dry really clear, so clear that you won't even know it's there. So it'll look like it's not been glued and the rope won't fray, so that's really good. And if you want, you can hang this this vertical garden. You can hang it inside or outside actually. If you don't mind a little bit of weather on it, it can go outside as well. It's not just an indoor project. Even though we did apply wood stain and a clear coat finish, if you put it outside, it's just going to make it look a little bit more rustic. So we're almost finished. I am going to cut off this zip tie here that I was using just to keep the knot in place while I was tying knots down under the pieces of wood. And now we're ready to install the plants. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you now know how to use a hole saw and make a very easy vertical garden. This is a quick project, actually, one of the quicker, easiest projects I've ever made a video of. If you like this video, please like and comment below. Subscribe to my channel. I have other DIY videos and more on the way. Also, I will have this vertical garden along with other of my creations for sale at my Etsy store at RoughDraftDIY.etsy.com. And if you would like to keep up with kind of my day-to-day projects, a good way to do that is on Instagram, and you can find me there at RoughDraftDIY. So thanks again for watching, and I'll be back later with another video.